Do you think Yorn ended up being a successful rework overall, or would Riot consider him a failure? It feels like he slowly went through another rework over the years through all the minor changes. I think Yorick is a massive success. I will tell you there's a number of designers who would disagree with me, but I'm of the opinion that Yorick is very successful. It is not important that every character be massively popular. It's what I think is most important is that characters have like a place in the game and serve that place really well and serve the players who like that place really well, and I think Yorick does that. Yorick is one of our deepest played champions. In the meaning of deep in this case is like he's one of our more mained champions. Yorick mains play a lot of Yorick and they tend to really like the guy. And so I genuinely believe that Yorick is a fairly successful, like, different character in the game that speaks to a specific set of players and does really well. If I was to criticize Yorick's design, I would give two problems with him, despite the fact that I think overall he's successful. One problem is he uses minions in League of Legends in an old coding thing, an old logic chain thing that just is deprecated and doesn't work. And so one of Yorick's problems is that he takes engineering rework. He takes engineering time, and not a trivial amount of it, to fix any bugs he has, and that sucks. It means a lot of things we want to do with ghouls or the Maiden just can't be done without significant engineering investment, so that's rough. Wish there was, a way to get him out of that system. This is one of the reasons we don't do a ton of minion characters in League, is because it can be really rough just upkeeping the character. And then the second thing I think is that I would maybe move Yorick more towards having mechanics that aren't so skewed towards bad players. Basically, everything Yorick does is only good against bad players to some degree, because good players know how to play against it. His W, good players will just knock it down. His ghouls, all the things, good players will just run away from them or fight them, whereas bad players just get killed by it. And so I do think, like, in the grand scheme of things, if there was maybe like one or two more things Yorick did that were just good against good players and not as good against bad players, I think that would probably put him in a better spot. But overall, I think he's a great character. I'm a big Yorick fan. One of the reasons I'm a Yorick fan is, so one of the things I do when a character is, in my mind, suffering, is I'll go play them. I'll be like, okay, people aren't really playing this character. This character's not super popular. What's going on here? And so I'll go play them, and very often it becomes super obvious pretty immediately, like the things that are holding that character back and like why people don't like playing them and why they're not very fun. So like when I, jumped on a character like old Taliyah, it was like, wow, there's so many things on Taliyah that are just super punishing and are like really hard to enjoy because it feels like it's working against you, things like that. In Yorick's case, I like went into it, I jumped on him expecting to have that experience of like, okay, so this guy's probably not gonna be very fun, let's find ways to make him more fun. And then I played him and I was like, wow, this guy's super fun. He's just bugged. Like, it was a very different experience when I ran into Yorick, where it's just like, actually, wow, there's so many fun and cool things going on here. He's just bugged. And so a lot of the then follow-up work that I suggested for Yorick, and I think Captain Gameplay did a lot of it actually, because he was able to work with an engineer. Again, I couldn't do it because I needed engineering help. Is just stuff like, hey, Maiden ints under towers. Hey, ghouls just don't work here in certain situations. And so it felt like back in the day when hopping on Yorick that like some of the things holding him back weren't that he wasn't fun, but more that there was just certain bugs that were keeping him held back. So Yorick's never getting reworked? I mean, I personally wouldn't rework Yorick. I would continue to fix his bugs and improve his feel. There's still a lot of work that I think could be done there. The problem, though, again, is doing that work takes a lot of work, unfortunately. I've seen many clips of you answering questions about range top, and you said that it's not meta because of the low pick rate of range characters top lane. My problem with that answer is that IMO people don't see playing against range top as playing Vayne. They count all on top lane range as one champion, and range top has about a 20% pick rate, which is a lot. Well, let's go investigate that. Pick rate of range top laners. Vladimir is 7.5% nowadays. That's because of that W build. Actually, let's go to 417. Partially because Vladimir is an outlier and I'm going to cheat, but also because we'll have more data here. Okay, so let's see. Time to get a notepad out. I can just add it in my head, actually. Okay, range top laners. We have most popular range top laner is Teemo. It's about 5%. After Teemo is Smolder with 3.5, so that's about 8.5. Then we go down to Vladimir at 3, that's 11. We go down to Gnar at 2.5, that's 13.5. We go down to, I don't think Kayle really counts, to be honest. Ugh, Kale's suffering right now. Go down to Kennen, that's 5%. Aurora, that's 15, 16. Vayne, 1.5. Yeah, you're getting about like 16, 18% pick rate up there. You have to cut that in half, because I'm pretty sure, I think all the pick rates add up to 200%, because there's one on each team. Am I crazy? I think it all adds up to 200%. So yeah, Jace. Does Jace count as a range top? I guess he does, so you can add him there. Yeah, no, it's a good point that not every... It's a good point that not every character is meta and range top. Like, at the end of the day, like, not anyone is super popular, but you are running into a number of them. And so if you're a player and you're like, I don't like range top, I think a thing though is when I was talking about range top, a lot of the conversation that was coming up was AD carries are infesting the top lane. And Vayne is an AD carry, but Jace is not, and Gnar is not, and Teemo is not. Sorry, like they're marksman type characters, right? But like they are historic top laners and always have been. And so a lot of these conversations about range top that I was having like a couple months ago on stream were kind of like people coming in and saying, AD carries are taking over the entire game. They're all I see in mid and they're all I see in top. And it's like, well, nothing has really changed over this last season all that much in terms of AD carries infesting the top lane. They definitely infested mid lane for a while. But a lot of the people you're seeing in top lane are people who have always been up there. Like Quinn's always been up there, Gnar's always been up there, Jace has always been up there. And so there's definitely some new ones that have popped up, like Vayne got more popular for a period of time, Smolder showed up, right? But like, we're not going to go and say, hey, no more Quinn. We're not going to go and say, hey, no more Teemo. Like, at the end of the day, part of the experience of top lane is you're going to run into some range characters at times. There's characters who are top laners. And that's very different than being like, and that's a very different statement than you're going to run into the AD carries who you'd expect to see bot, right? So I can definitely understand the frustration playing against range top laners, and I can understand like the statement of range top is like present, but just noting that like a lot of these clips you're seeing of me talking about range top was directly in response to AD carries going top lane, like bot lane AD carries, as if they were taking over like they were taking over mid. And a lot of those characters in top lane that I'm seeing have always been there. Whereas like, yeah, Smolder's, he's new, but he's also not giga popular up there, right? And we don't have a goal of removing the range top matchup. We don't have a goal of saying you never run into range champions up here. We would have a goal if it was a bunch of AD carries that normally you don't see up there showing up there. We'd be like, okay, well, that's probably an issue. But that's very different than saying things like, I don't want to play against Teemo, or I don't want to play against Jace. Hey Reptile, I was wondering if there's any plans on Vayne as her win rate on top lane. It's currently lower than bot lane, where she's really weak. Well, she might need buffs. I'm not sure. I couldn't talk to you about Vayne, unfortunately. I'm just out of the office right now. Couldn't help you out with that. But, you know, if she's has room in top lane, we probably, like, if she's not doing very well in top lane and not super popular up there, it probably means we have room to buff her in bot lane. But, like, I don't really have any plans there. Yeah. Have you ever considered doing an A to Z challenge where you work through the roster and give your champion design thoughts on each of them? I mean, maybe. It would just take a very, very long time, I guess I would say. I've done that for things like champion ults, actually.